Hey friends,
We're
you know
back.
there's an old rule which is for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. We didn't have any electricity down here, and we don't have a portable vacuum cleaner that would actually work to suck this thing out. But this inverter is sealed. Oh, there he goes.
Yep, he's wandering back and forth. Who looked for mousies, Jack? Anyway.
This inverter is sealed. It has an opening here that uses outside air to blow in and then come back out to cool the unit in operation. There's a version of this that is completely sealed that's used in marine environments. So what I did was to look in here closely to see where all the debris was. It's all small stuff. It barely fit through the screen to go in. So I took a can of canned air. And I blew all that stuff out by aiming the air up against the top of the inverter. And all the air that was coming out blew all of that stuff out. It worked great. Now it's time to go ahead and start connecting things up. It won't be a lot of work. Now what I did before I took the electrical components apart was I marked which of these wires goes on the top. When I first designed this, I used a bunch of wire that was convenient to use, but
It had more conductors than you needed.
it was wire for a direct buried 240 volt line. This is only 120, so I don't need all of those connections. Why is this safe?
No, why is what you're doing safe?
Because it isn't connected to anything.
That's a good reason.
I'm not exactly chicken, but I'm chicken. Now, this is the output side of this inverter. I'm going to only connect up the minimum connections to give this a try. One of the most important things to make sure is that I have my ground connected. I need to tighten that up enough. Okay. Now, all I need to do is connect the batteries back up to this inverter and move the things off the top of the batteries so that we can do that.
Doesn't like something.
That's an error because the controller's not connected.
Oh, okay.
So let me grab the wrench here and I'll tighten this down. So far, so good.
Are you setting stuff or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's the old controller, but it's compatible with this one.
Yes. In fact, this is exactly the same inverter that we just took off.
Okay.
All right, well, it's going to take me a while to set this thing up to see if the inverter is working. I have to go through this entire setup process, so I'll be doing that. And I'm going to let Irene take her phone back up to the house and get on with her day.
Yeah, because it's one of those days.
More tomorrow.
Yeah?
It's been an interesting week.
Yeah, that's one word for it.
Irene got one of her major projects shipped out in the mail yesterday. I took it into the post office.
Yep.
And
now we just hold our breath to make sure the good old USPS doesn't screw us up that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this whole thing with the inverter came about yesterday because
I was trying to do my homework.
It was time for her to get on some homework, and it didn't work right.
Yeah, I plugged it in, and I said, I was kind of, just one of those things where I had a feeling that it just wasn't going to work. And when I came back down, because you have to let the kiln heat up a little bit, it smelled the burned electrical stuff. So I was like, good.
Well, thanks for watching. We hope your week goes better than it's been going for me so far.
Yeah. Well, you killed your phone his phone died on Monday. And
right after I turned on two-factor authentication for some of our YouTube stuff.
Right.
Which now means I can't do anything on YouTube. I'm having to go in through a back door.
Right. So he had to borrow another piece of equipment from me, one of my old iPad minis, so that he could use that. So, yeah, it's been one of those weeks. It shows you how attached you are to technology.
Today is day 3, working to fix the solar electric in Irene's studio. I discovered 2 days ago that it looked like there was an inverter problem. Yesterday, we changed the inverter out, put the new inverter in, connected it up, had a little different result, but still the wires were getting hot. I looked more closely and did a little bit of analysis, and I'll show you later what I found. But first, I need to finish making some cables. I'll be using these little connectors. That's a terminal ring connector, and the wire goes right in here. The cable is a large gauge. This is 4/0. That's 0000. It's welding cable. Yesterday's problem is centered right here on this fuse holder. Looking closely at the fuse holder, there's some bubbling of the plastic. When I did the test yesterday, had the new inverter installed, didn't have all the covers on, but it was running. I felt this cable. Now there's a lot of ways you can go about testing these things. I don't have all the right tools, but one of the things you can use is you can use your hands. I felt this cable, and there's no heat up here. And there was no heat down here. But when I felt in this area, it was warm. In fact, right now, this is warm. I'm not running a whole lot of power. There's about 100 watts worth of electricity running through the system right now. Now, why did this end get hot and that end not? I'll take this apart and show you. These cables are made with 4/0 welding wire. That's 0000 welding wire. Each end has a connector crimped on. That's what I was doing with the tool on the floor. I just made sure that I kept the two terminal connectors in the same plane so that I don't have to fight the cable when I'm installing it. I'm going to replace this fuse block with this fuse block here. It's also plastic, which I don't really like, but it's what's available. Now there's a big difference between this fuse block and the fuse block that's already installed. And that is, this has a post for the cable to connect to right there. This one has a connector that goes in from the bottom. It's a cut wire connector. And you tighten down an Allen screw to make the connection.
Anyway, so I harvested the pak choy and checked the lettuce. The Muir lettuce is still fine, and some of the Adriana is still fine. The romaine is still fine, and some of the, like I say, some of the Adriana is still fine. Some of it has gone bitter. The Nancy has gone bitter, so I harvested that out and recycled it. Recycled it, yes.
Irene, can you grab me the stubby 1/2 inch off your kiln, please? Thank you. We can go turn on the lights up there? Sure. Lights, camera, action.
Yes.
Now that we have this fuse block off the wall, it's really worthwhile taking a look at it. As you can see right here, the plastic is melted. That's the primary smell that Irene was getting when she came into the studio. The first time this happened, the insulation was all the way up to that connector right there. But as you can see, the wire is exposed. That's because the insulation melted on this wire. I'm willing to bet that when I take this apart, I'm going to see a lot of oxidation inside that connector right there. What the oxidation on this connector would do is increase the resistance. It's really simple. The higher the resistance, the more heat is going to be generated. That's why we use large gauge wires going to the batteries. We don't want there to be a lot of voltage loss, which means heat in the cable. As you can see, we have lights. It's really nice to have lights in here again, but I need to start checking the cables to see if they're heating up. I don't believe they'll heat up, or I don't think they'll heat up much. So let's go ahead and check them. This one's just cold. That's really great news. I think I'm going to go ahead and try running Irene's kiln to see how much the wire is going to heat up. I'm pretty sure it's going to heat some. The objective is to not have it heat up so much that it's going to melt anything. The problem started off with the inverter failing, or failing to shut off the way it was supposed to, which then meant that the wires got hot and eventually the fuse blew. Let's give this a try. Now when this kiln turns on, we should hear the inverter start running. And it's running. Wires are still cool. That's great. I just need to let this run for a few minutes. After the kiln has run for a while, the wire does get warm. There's another factor when it comes to running a battery-powered inverter, and that is the amount of voltage that comes out of the batteries themselves. These are old batteries. They're pretty well worn. That load from the kiln right here has dropped the effective battery voltage to 11.1 volts, and the wires are heating up. Well, I hope you enjoyed this 3-day extravaganza trying to figure out what was going on with Irene's solar electric system. It's not uncommon that when you have one of these systems that one part failing will cause another part to fail, which might cause another part to fail. And that's what happened here, I'm pretty sure. The inverter failed to shut off when it got an overcurrent situation, which then caused the wire to heat up, caused the fuse block to melt, and eventually the fuse blew. Well, I hope this helped you understand a little bit more about solar electric and the things that can go wrong. A lot of it's simple, but in my case, I had to drive 120 miles round trip twice because of this simple problem. It's one of the frustrating things when you live in a rural situation. You either drive or you wait for the mail, wait for UPS, or wait for FedEx. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show with your friends. As we always do here on our homestead, keep brainstorming.